Excellent, thank you everyone. So say what we'll do at the end is we'll send you a link to it so you've got it to refer back to. Right, okay, so Danielle, can you move us on?
Yeah.
Thank you. So just before we start, a little bit of housekeeping as if this was an actual proper face-to-face workshop. And oh, there's somebody waiting. I'll just admit them in.
Yeah.
So, as I say, this is an hour and a half long and it's really quite full on content wise. So there won't really be any natural breaks. So please, if you want to get up and get a cup of tea or a glass of water or go to the toilet, just get up and go, because there won't actually be a sort of 5-minute break in which to do that. If you've got any questions, please ask them as we go along. Either just stick your hand up and we'll try and keep an eye on everybody, or if we're ignoring you, or if you prefer, stick your question in the chat room, and one of us will pick up on it and try and answer it. Just the last thing to say, technology-wise, we have pitched this at a digital fest and called it Being in a Digital World. Being in the digital world, we're doing this over Zoom. We practiced this on Friday. At times the technology is not great, sound may come in and out. I've already had a message telling me my internet is unstable for some reason. So just saying, if things go wrong, bear with us. That is one of the issues of doing things in the digital world. Okay, Danielle's actually sort of moving the slides around, so I just need to keep saying Danielle next. So again, just bear with. Right, Danielle, can you move it on, please? Thank you. So the agenda for this morning, what we're talking about is taking a purpose, turning it into a strategy, and then make sure you're delivering on that strategy, keeping in mind your core purpose. So we'll do a bit of welcome and introductions, and then I'll spend a bit of time talking about what do we mean by purpose. Then we're going to have a bit of a breakout session and ask you to write your own purpose statement. We'll then come back and I'll talk a little bit about how you then lead that into your strategy. And then for the most part of the session, Danielle's going to talk to you about then how you deliver that strategy, really through having the right people and the right culture and having the right infrastructure. So they're the sort of two main themes that Danielle will talk to you about towards the back end of the session. Oh, thanks, Danielle, I didn't need to ask you there. So just to start off with, I'm going to ask you to do two things, a bit of multitasking. We're going to put a poll up and just ask you a couple of questions on the poll. So if you could fill the poll in, and then at some point, not particularly now, but during the session, if you could introduce yourself in the chat room so people know who you are and a bit about you, but just do that as you feel the time's right to do that. So thank you, Danielle. Danielle's put the poll up. So if you could just answer, there's only 3 questions there just to help us understand a bit more about you. That would be great. Thank you. Can everybody take it? Everybody can see it.
About half of you have voted so far.
Yeah, I'm just waiting on 3. Oh, thick and fast now. Oh, has somebody else joined us? Oh yeah, we've now got 10 people.
Yes, I've just...
So we're just waiting on 1 to vote. I don't know, Ruth, if you just joined us, if there's a poll going on. Right, okay, well, I don't know who's not voted, so we'll
Let's end it there. So just...
Right, so excellent. So, right, great. So 7 out of 9 of you say you have a clear purpose. So that's great. I'm guessing maybe that's what's attracted you to this workshop. So that's absolutely brilliant. And when we come to do this breakout groups, where we write your purpose, then I'm guessing it might just be reflecting on your current purpose that you can do in that session. Most of you are sort of small SMEs. So again, that's great. And industry-wise, bit of a mixture. And the people that are other, you can share in the chat room what it is you do. So that's brilliant. Thank you for that. So I'm going to come out of that. Okay, right. Can we move it on, please?
Yeah, so we're just going to introduce ourselves quickly. So I'll go first. I'm Danielle. I run DH Professional Solutions. Over the course of the last kind of 10 to 15 years, I've worked in quite a variety of very large, complex organisations, mostly working on business change and transformation, collecting a variety of largely kind of business and programme and project management related qualifications along the way. And what I'm up to now is one of my main values, which is to make a difference. I've been very inspired by the UN's Sustainable Development Goals. I'm very passionate about working with businesses who contribute to these in some way.
Thank you, and that's me. As you can see, nearly wore the same top but decided against it. So my background is I've got 30 years working in financial services, started off in marketing and product development. I've worked for two very different organisations. I worked for a very large bank, which was completely profit orientated, then moved to a building society, and as a mutual was much more about its members. So two very different cultures, but the building society, a much, much stronger sense of purpose and a much stronger sense of I was getting up in the morning and there was a purpose and a meaning to it, and I was doing good for our members and the wider society. While it did have a strong purpose, what it lacked, like many organisations, was the ability then to execute its strategy aligned to that purpose. So what I did was I set up my own consultancy firm, Carduus Ltd, which is aimed at your bigger businesses and making sure that, I guess it's the strategic planning processes and the execution and all the SLT are on board and aligned and taking the business in the same direction. What I found is a lot of SMEs also either need a strategy or it's all in your head and you don't have a particular plan or a strategy in place. So I set up my second business, Brenda Etchells Strategy Made Simple, really to focus on working with SMEs and helping you develop your strategy and have a plan in place to execute that strategy. So that's me. So I'm very much the sort of strategy part of those three links. Cool, thank you. So we move on then. So what is purpose? Any of us can Google about purposes. I've picked out a few of the statements that kind of resonated with me. And this one is from a very, very recent survey done by Deloitte that talks about purpose-driven companies actually have higher market share and grow 3 times faster on average than their competitors who don't have a strong purpose. And at the same time, because you've got that strong purpose, your employees are galvanised and engaged, and therefore your customers are sort of have much higher satisfaction levels with you as well. I think at the moment there is a drive and a trend towards more companies being purpose-driven. And as that goes on, that kind of competitive advantage of being purpose-driven might dilute over time. But for now, people with real purpose do much better than their competitors. Can we move it on? So we've kind of pitched this as a DigiFest. So I think we should make a nod to what it means in a digital world. And really for me, in a digital world, there's a much more accelerated pace of change. Yeah, there's always new technology. There's always, that's meaning there's more disruption in your market, whatever business you're in. And also as consumers, digitalization means that our habits and our expectations are changing. We might want things faster. We might want the transition to be smoother. And really, as a business, we have to keep up with that pace of change the digital world brings us. Next. There's also a great shift towards millennials or Generation Y or X, whatever you call them. They, much more than my generation, really want to go and work for a company that has a true purpose and real meaning and makes a difference to society, rather than maybe a big, hungry, profit, greedy corporation. There's definitely a shift towards wanting to work that is meaningful to you. Also, in this sort of era of visibility, I guess, and social media, it's kind of individuals have much more power to actually change things and to start movements. And it very, very quickly gathers pace and becomes like a massive thing. So if we think about recently, like potentially like the Me Too movement, how much pace and momentum that gathered very, very quickly because of social media. And a lot of businesses might have to start maybe adapting or changing their messaging to fit in with whatever that kind of latest belief is. And finally on that, this is an Accenture recent study that basically 62% of customers said they want companies to be making a stand on whatever those relevant issues of today are. So whether it's sustainability, transparency, fair employment practices like the living wage, more and more customers will be looking for companies to be clear about their positioning on these things before they deal with them. Okay, thank you. So, talking about purpose, I'm going to come on to Simon Sinek's Golden Circle in a bit, but basically your purpose is the why, okay? Why you set up your business, why you get up in the morning every day and do your business, why your employees join and want to work for your company, and why your customers are choosing you to give their money to. There's different expressions that all particularly mean the same thing here. A lot of people talk about it being their North Star. What is it that's kind of up here, if you can see my hand, that's driving you and driving all your decisions and driving your strategy? Raison d'etre, what is your reason for being? Like we said, why do you exist? It should be a constant. So unlike a strategy which is evolving all the time, your purpose should fundamentally remain a constant. And it's the heartbeat, it's the life and soul of your organisation, it's the behaviours, it's the culture, it's how your people feel and how your customers feel. So it's very much an emotional connection, your purpose. Thank you, Danielle. So another couple of statements that I've read, which I guess just highlight what we've just talked about. So one in Harvard Business Review on an article called The Business Case for Purpose. Again, it talks about it being aspirational, it's your reason for being, it's inspiring. Hopefully there's a strong call to action there for all the stakeholders to kind of link to. And there should be some benefit to a local or global society. So there's a wider benefit out with just the profits of your organisation. Very, very similar from Forbes. We talk about that higher order, that North Star. Again, it's the reason for being. And again, they talk about your existence being more than just making money. There's something you're doing that is adding value to the wider society. Okay, thank you. A lot of people get muddled up between a purpose and a vision. So again, just trying to establish what the differences are. So again, a great article in Harvard Business Review by a guy called Graham Kennedy, who says it's a reminder, your purpose is not your vision, it's not your mission, it's not your values. It stands above all those things. It should have some sort of outward focus, and the customer and the benefits to your customers are at the core. It should be motivational because, as we talked about, it's the heartbeat. So it's less logical and it's more about the emotion. And what he says is if you're crafting a purpose statement, the advice is to inspire your staff to do good work for you. Find a way to express the organisation's impact on the lives of your customers, your clients, whoever you're trying to serve. And again, it's about making them feel it. Okay, thank you. Next slide. Your vision, to me, it's much more logical. It's kind of goal orientated. Where does your organisation want to be in maybe like 3 to 5 years' time? And it'll probably be done at a senior management level. And it's about all those linking all those day-to-day activities to that vision. So when I used to work in the building society, it was to be the most trusted building society, or whatever it was. We had at our core of our vision was about trust. At the end of the day, the purpose was about giving people homes to live in. So I said all the strategic priorities and actions should be aligned to the purpose, and in return your purpose should have some link up to your vision, and your vision should have a link up to your purpose. Okay, so we're going to have a bit of fun now and see if you can distinguish between these. So some of these are purposes and some of these are visions. So if you want to unmute yourselves, what I'm going to ask you to do is, first of all, can anybody identify the organisation from the statement? And then I'll get you just to say whether you think it's a vision or a purpose. So anybody any idea who this one is?
Nope.
No? Okay, I really like this one. This one's actually Kellogg's, nourishing families so they can flourish and thrive. I really like that. That one sort of resonates with me on an emotional level. Anybody want to take a stab if they think it's a purpose or a vision?
Purpose.
Well, was that your Glaswegian voice there, Lynn?
That was me for sure.
You're absolutely right. That is a purpose, and I hopefully you can kind of see why that's a purpose, because it does actually has like a real connection, and the fact that families can feed the children and thrive. Right, so we've moved on to the next one. To be the world's leading producer and provider of entertainment and information. Anyone else guess who that is? No, come on, somebody have a guess.
Netflix.
Netflix. I thought somebody might say Netflix because that's what people usually say. Actually, it's Disney.
Oh.
Yeah, to me, this doesn't really reflect what Disney's all about. I don't get the essence of Disney from it.
No, it's not magical enough.
It's not magical enough, you're right. You think it's a purpose or a vision?
Vision.
Vision.
Yeah, it's a vision. It doesn't have that emotional connection to be a purpose. Okay, next one. To make the best products on earth and to leave the world better than we found it.
Apple.
What was that?
Apple.
Yeah, you're right. Purpose or vision?
Vision.
Vision, you're right, actually. It is a vision. To me, this has got very much an essence of being a purpose as well, in terms of leaving the world better than they found it. So a bit of both in there, really. We've got two more. The next one. To sell shoes in order to improve lives and communities across the globe. Any guesses? Any shoes? Tom's, yeah, absolutely. So for every pair of shoes that Tom sells, they donate a pair of shoes to children in third world countries. Do we think it's a vision or a purpose?
Vision.
It's like purpose.
Okay, it's a purpose. Again, it's kind of one of these ones that encompasses both things. Last but not least, I love this one. To inspire and develop the builders of tomorrow.
Oh,
Lego.
Minecraft.
Lego, absolutely. Yeah. Vision or purpose?
Purpose.
It is a purpose, yeah. So I just wanted to do that to a bit of fun, but also to kind of show that sometimes it can be quite hard, and vision and purposes can kind of morph into one. Can we move on? So I guess what I'm trying to say is, partly to me, it doesn't really matter if you position it as a purpose or a vision. What matters is that it's authentic, it's real, it's running an organisation, your people understand what it is, your customers understand what it is, and you're clear about what it is that's driving you. Okay. So what makes a good purpose statement? We've just seen some are better than others. What makes a good one? There's a couple of different things. So as we've said, it really needs to be inspiring and evoke an emotion. And an example of that, to inspire the limitless potential in every girl. This is actually Barbie from the 1950s. And I think in the 1950s, you could get away with saying in every girl. Probably today, that would be like in every child. What's to stop boys playing with Barbie dolls? It's number 2, it can be relatively short, doesn't have to be overly wordy. And a good example of a really impactful short one is to entertain the world. And this one's actually the Netflix one. Number 3, it should have some sort of outcome. So purpose driven, your purpose is leading to an outcome. This is IKEA, which I think is overly wordy, but I kind of gets the point over. Wide range of well-designed functional home furnishing products at prices so low as many people as possible able to afford them. To me, that it's too wordy and it's not short and snappy enough, but it's very much outcome focused. It should balance aspiration. We've talked about it being North Star and aspirational, but with some sort of precision about how you're going to achieve it. This is Adidas. Through sport, we have the power to change lives. So changing lives is quite emotional and aspirational, but the precision part is they're doing it through sport. Now, we're talking about purpose here, and there's a bit of a grey area between having a general purpose and actually having a social purpose. And some companies will have a general purpose that's not a societal good, so to speak, but there is a lot of grey area. This is Airbnb's one. We help people to belong anywhere. And I kind of like that one because to me that's quite general and generic. It has a bit of a social purpose as well, as they want people to travel the world and be able to feel like they belong anywhere they're traveling. And then it can evolve. Now, this is an interesting one because we've talked about your purpose being a constant, but a couple of companies do evolve their purpose over the years, but they evolve it without changing the essence of the messaging. So if we look at Tesla, for example, if Danielle hits the button, that's it. Tesla's purpose used to be, we exist to accelerate the planet's transition to sustainable transport, which was absolutely what they were about. As their business has evolved and they've now evolved from transport into things like solar paneling and stuff, they've just tweaked their purpose to it now says sustainable energy. So still very much the core purpose, core beliefs, but they've evolved it as their business has moved. So at the beginning of this, a lot of you said you already have a purpose. What I'd like to do is thinking about what you've heard this morning, we're going to do breakout groups. We're just going to give you 5 minutes to discuss what your purpose currently is, how you could tweak it. If you don't have one, maybe have a quick go at writing one for yourself. So Danielle's about to put you into groups of 3 or 4, and we're going to give you 5 minutes and then we'll all come back and have a bit of a chat about it. So, okay, Danielle, if you can do your magic. Is that it? Everybody back?
Yeah, everyone's back.
Okay, we seem to lose some people during that. I don't know why, but hey, some of you are still with us, so that's good. Thank you for staying with us. And does anybody want to share either what your purpose was, if you've had any thoughts or reflections on it from this morning? Have you written now for yourself?
I'm happy to share because I don't really know what my vision is anymore, but my purpose is to help business shine online.
I love that. That's
brilliant.
Yeah,
I love that.
yeah, really nice.
So,
and is that what it was? That's what it's been all along.
yeah, hence the sunshines and sunflowers and everything on the branding. So that's my my purpose. But I just think I don't really feel like I've got a vision anymore. Just to survive, really.
That's in this day and age, that's a fair enough vision.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing. Anybody else want to share?
Yeah, I don't mind. We're busy. I've had it clearly in my mind, but we spent just a little bit of time putting it into words. And it's to support the B2B industry with the transition to operating in the digital era.
Okay, yep, so very clear outcome in that one then. And you're very clear about who you're talking to with that purpose as well, so that's really good, very clear. Anyone else?
Yes.
We'll go for one more, go on.
May I ask Lynn, if I'm right in saying CIC is a community interest company, a form of a cooperative?
Yes.
And how many people are in the cooperative, or is she just a sole trader?
It's a limited partnership.
I see.
Cool. Right, thank you. Hopefully you got a bit of use out of that little breakout group, and just, I guess it'd be nice just to chat to each other a bit as well anyway, and make connections. Right, we're going to just move on to a bit of strategy stuff, which is really, I'm just trying to link, I guess, what we talked about purpose to what Danielle talked about delivery. So it's just kind of the meat in the sandwich. This is kind of a diagram that I work with. So as we've said, your purpose should be your constant. That's your reason for existing and being. Your vision is more, I guess, a long-term business goal. And then the strategy is your priorities, your actions, your tactics, what you're measuring, what your goals are. So in terms of that strategy piece, if we can move it on. I think what we're trying to say is having a purpose and purpose-driven businesses is not about ticking a box. It's actually about truly embedding it in every action that you do. It should be core to every strategic choice you make as you grow your business. And a business with a strong purpose will say no to things. So they will be making decisions based on, is this almost on, or is this aligned to my purpose? Yes or no? If no, then we shouldn't be doing it. So as I've kind of said, it should be guiding a list of strategic principles which help you with that decision making and make it very clear whether you should be doing something or not. There is a danger that purpose just becomes part of this sort of marketing 4 Ps, or how many Ps there are these days, with brands trying to position themselves and promote themselves on benefits. We've talked about like sustainability or whatever it is. So I think what I'm trying to say is it really must be authentic and at the heart of what you're doing, or else I think customers and employees will see through it and it'll end up just making you more reputational damage than good. So it needs to really be true and authentic. Okay, so translating it into strategy, and a survey here again by Harvard Business Review, basically was saying that most executives, yeah, we agree it really matters to have a purpose. 89% said there should be a strong sense of collective purpose. They all agree it can affect an organisation's ability to transform. And like we said, in this digital world, you need to be able to adapt very quickly. And most of them think it increases customer loyalty. But less than half of them actually said it's actually driving their company in a purpose-driven way. So yes, we have a purpose and that's all great, but we're not actually really using it on a day-to-day basis to drive our actions. Okay. A company that I believe are really good at translating their purpose into strategy, into delivery is Patagonia. And on the face of it, Patagonia are a clothing brand, quite a fashionable clothing brand. But if you look at their purpose is nothing to do with clothing. Their purpose is to save the home planet. And basically they live and breathe that through their strategic initiatives. So one of their strategic initiatives is called the Common Threads Initiative. It's about lightening the environmental footprint, basically saying to consumers, buy less good quality stuff that lasts you rather than buying a t-shirt every week. So on the opposite end of the spectrum, I have a daughter who's very much into the fast fashion and your ASOS and your Boohoo, and buys stuff and chucks them in a pile in her bedroom. This is about taking people away from that and only buying what you need and thinking twice before you buy something. And they put this into practice through a marketing campaign a couple of years ago, a very famous marketing campaign in the New York Times, that basically said to the consumers, do not buy this jacket. Do not come to us and buy clothing. What they asked to do instead was their customers to sign up to the Common Threads initiative and to take a pledge. So what they asked their customers in the pledge, if you can move it on, don't know why I went American there. So they've basically got 5 R's. Reduce. They want people to reduce the amount of stuff that they're buying. And their way of doing that is to make sure what they sell and what they produce is manufactured to such a high quality, you do not need to buy anything else. If something should happen to your Patagonia clothing, they pledge to repair it for you. So you pledge to, rather than go out and replace it and buy something else, to fix what you've already got. Similarly, if you don't want it anymore, reuse it, pass it on to somebody who does want it. And recycle, they will actually take back the goods you don't want anymore, and in return they'll give you a bit of a discount off buying something else. And then what you're pledging to do is to keep it out of landfill. So it's very much about working together in partnership with their customers, and together they're trying to reimagine the world without all this environmental damage that fast fashion is doing. So I just think they're a really good example of somebody who actually lives and breathes what their purpose is all about. Okay. So you've probably all, I'm assuming a lot of people will have known about Simon Sinek's Golden Circle. So what he says is we're all very good at knowing what we do. So we sell widgets or we help B2B businesses in the digital world. We're very good at knowing what we do. We've talked about the purpose is the why we're doing it, why we exist, why it matters. I guess the strategy part is the middle section. It's the how. How are you translating that why into what you do? And how are you differentiating yourself to your competition in that space? So strategy for me is very much that middle circle, the how. Okay. This is the business model canvas, and this is a tool that I use a lot with my clients. And it really just gets you to think about the how part, the strategy part of your business and how it all connects together. So if we kind of start in that middle box in terms of your value proposition, this is basically what we've talked about. This is your why. Why do you exist, and why should I as a customer come and buy from you? In terms of your customers, and again, thinking about your purpose, who is your ideal customer? Who's going to come and be part of your journey with you? And is it important to you that they share your beliefs? In terms of the relationship, how deep a relationship your customers want. Do you want your customers to end up being brand ambassadors for you? And what channels are you reaching them through? Are you reaching them through digital channels? And what are you using to help promote your business and your cause? In terms of the back office, in terms of what you do on a day-to-day basis, are you sure that all your activities, again, align to your purpose? Do your employees know, understand and embed the purpose in all that they do? And even is that part of your recruitment process as well? And very important is thinking about your strategic partners and other people in your supply chain, because if they let you down, that can damage your reputation as well. So there's a lot of been companies in the news where the company themselves might be doing everything, for example, paying their employees a living wage, but somewhere down the supply chain they might have somebody manufacturing goods and it's almost slave labor, and because of that, that will damage your reputation as well. So it's very important you think about every aspect of your supply chain. Okay, we can move on. We're not really going to delve into brand because that's like a whole workshop in itself, but I just want you to have a think about in terms of your purpose and your branding and your positioning in the market. So what is distinctive about the way you talk about yourselves and you express yourself that means people can recognize you at a distance and know, and it's very clear about what you believe in? And what is it about the hearts and minds of your customers and your other stakeholders? How do you position yourself externally with other people? Internally, what's the kind of behaviours and values and characteristics that form your, in essence, your corporate character? And as I've said, think about the nature of your relationships with your key holders and make sure that as far as possible, everybody on that journey is aligned with your beliefs and your purpose. So one final kind of strategy slide from me, I guess, is in terms of your strategy, make sure it's the right one for the current environment. Yeah, and you know, we all have to be very adaptive and agile in this current climate, in this digital world. So make sure your strategy allows you to adapt quickly. Make sure your structure's right for your strategy. There's no point having levels and levels and layers of governance and accountability if you need to move fast. Yeah, you want to empower your people to be innovative and change. Think about your processes. Are they as efficient as they could be? Or have you got a lot of waste going on that you can strip out your business? Are you rewarding the people for the right behaviours? A lot of what we measure is what gets done. So make sure what you're measuring are the right measures and how you're rewarding people are based on the right stuff. And have you got the right people and the right skills and the right roles is really fundamental. And if we think about this, the left-hand side, the people and the reward, is your sort of people, and the right-hand side is your infrastructure. And they're the two main areas that Danielle's going to talk to you about in just a minute. Let me move it on, thank you. Ping, ping, ping. So I'm just going to leave you because I saw this letter, somebody posted it that I used to work beside on Facebook just the other day there. And I just, when I read it, I thought it just really encompasses what we've been talking about here. So the meaning is there, but they've just delivered it in such the wrong way. So this is a letter from our Chief Executive of Yorkshire Building Society, what, 30 odd years ago. But what stands out is what he's saying there is that he talks there, the last paragraph, the world may change around us, but it's our principles that need to remain a constant and provide us with that clear guide for the future. So back then he was very clear, we have a purpose and it's really important that purpose is constant and is guiding everything we do. What I don't think he did was really typing out a memo like this in such a staid way, was actually taking his employees with them and galvanizing people. So the intent was there, just maybe the delivery was wrong. So I thought I'd just leave that because I thought it was quite amusing. So I'm going to hand you over now to Danielle, who's going to talk about the delivery in terms of people and the infrastructure. Thank you. Over to you, Danielle.
Thanks, Brenda. So I'm going to talk a bit about so the ways that you can really make sure that you're delivering against your purpose and delivering your strategy that you've put in place. So on top of some of the kind of marketing initiatives and externally facing stuff that Brenda's talked about, what I'm going to talk about predominantly is your kind of internal operations and how you arrange yourself and organise yourself to really deliver against your purpose. So heads up, there's quite a lot of information in here because I wanted to kind of really share as much value as possible as we can cram into this session. So let's see how it goes. Feel free to kind of ask questions in the chat, or come off mute and jump in if you want to. So the two main areas that we're going to look at are the culture of an organisation and infrastructure, and I'll explain more about what exactly I mean by these things as we go through. So looking at culture, so there are various ways of kind of defining what organisational culture is, and actually again we could do a whole other webinar on that, but I'm just going to launch another quick poll just to see what you think. So it is multiple choice, so just kind of have a look and see which things you think mean culture to you.
It should allow you to pick more than one thing as well, so you don't have to just pick one.
Yeah, it can be a combination of things. Yeah, that's interesting, the results that are coming in. It's like one person still to vote. close that and share. So you'll see it's quite a mixed bag, and that's right. You know, we'll talk a bit more about it in a second, but bit of a trick question really, so probably a bit mean on my part, but it's kind of everything really, and you'll see here behaviours, most of you have answered that, if not all of you. Values is quite high on there, and communications. So if we move on, here are some kind of descriptions of organisational culture from various places, and how various people and various organisations define it. The way that we do things around here is certainly something that I've come across, you know, countless times, and I'm sure you've probably heard of. You don't need to kind of read each of these individually, but what you'll probably have spotted is the kind of the values and the behaviours, the repetition theme there. It's very human stuff basically, and so once you start to look at, you know, how you build an organisational culture and how you work on that, one of the things that you want to start with is your people, the people within your business, and largely focused around values. So any successful business leader will usually put people at the top of their kind of list of things that are important in order to kind of achieve success in whatever it is they're trying to do. There is a company called Cotswold Fair who I am going to use as a bit of a case study throughout this, but the guy called Paul Hargreaves, who runs that business, he'll tell you, you know, that in terms of recruitment and in terms of looking at, you know, if you're a larger business, the people that you already have in your business, this is so important. Thinking about the people that you employ and their self-awareness. So even just the concept, you know, that people are different, everybody is different, and everybody likes to do things in different ways and has their own kind of behavioural preferences and things like that. So whether that's through coaching or more formal kind of psychometrics assessments, or, you know, whatever it is, even just, you know, conversations, and like I say, just that awareness that everybody's different, that can really start to help the kind of team harmony, if you like. Values. So I'm going to talk about values quite a lot, but I think the key here is to think about, when you are putting people into roles, actually the skills can be more or actually less important, depending on what the role is, of course, but than the values. So again, Paul will say, if you have people that two people going for a job that have got the same skills, then actually you want to be looking at what their values and what their beliefs are. In terms of coming up with your values, it can be easier on your own. You know, if you're a small business or even a freelancer or a sole trader, to come up with your values, because more often than not, your business values are based on, you know, your own personal values, and there are various processes that you can go through to kind of define what those values are, really kind of discovering what they are and articulating them. But this also helps with linking to relationships with your clients, your customers, so helping you find potential new clients, or helping you kind of reaffirm those relationships that you have with your existing customers. It also builds trust within an organisation, so that's between colleagues, between leadership and the employees. It really creates a much better kind of working environment, and also leads to productivity of the employees themselves. So happy employees will work more productively. That's not rocket science, but generally speaking, when they feel aligned to a purpose, it gives them that sense of belonging, and really helps them to feel involved and included, and that, you know, will always carry through to the way then that they interact with your clients, and therefore the knock-on effect of kind of success as well. And you'll see here that quote that I was just referring to from Paul: you always want to be finding people that are excited about what the company are up to and excited to be involved. So staying on the people theme, but from a more practical point of view. So leadership. We looked at those descriptions of organisational culture, and one of the things that came up a lot was behaviours. So the leadership team really demonstrating the behaviours and the values that are wanted within that organisation. There is a book which I really like called Leadership Plain and Simple by Stephen Radcliffe, and he talks about this leadership model which is future, engage, deliver, and essentially it's him talking about leaders being up to something, and that is the vision or the future that they describe, and then being able to engage people, and then ultimately those people delivering that future for him, which I quite like. Then think about your team structure. So what is it you're actually trying to achieve? What is that purpose? What is the customer value that you're trying to deliver, and your internal values? So might it be that you are passionate about innovation, and therefore how are you structuring your teams accordingly? So it might be that you want to set up project teams to be able to work on specific innovations and things like that, but you really need to be thinking about what it is you're really trying to achieve and how best to do that. Roles and responsibilities, again, it helps deliver whatever it is you're trying to deliver. So if you have really clear roles and responsibilities, then you want to give flexibility and autonomy to individuals, but ownership and clear boundaries, which obviously not only kind of helps the employee to understand exactly what they're there for and how they're going to deliver the purpose that this organisation wants to deliver, but it's also, from a practical point of view, it helps avoid duplication or people not being sure of what they're supposed to be doing and having to come and kind of check with you every 5 minutes, that sort of stuff. There are ways of building purpose into people development. So organisations do it differently, do it in different ways, but things like personal development plans and how you kind of build it into their targets and things within their PDPs. It might be that you want to offer training opportunities that help align to the purpose and values. It might be that you build it into the kind of coaching and mentoring that you offer. And then leading on to something that Brenda mentioned, which is around reward and benefits. So it's always best, I'd say, to start with values, and that's probably the most genuine way to get people bought into the purpose and what it is you're trying to deliver. But there may also be something within the kind of benefits offer that you provide for employees as well that you can link to those values and perhaps kind of initiatives and things, but also in the packages and the benefits that you're offering. So again, look at your values. If you're saying that you are about well-being, then you want to be offering a pretty decent well-being package to your employees, that sort of stuff. So look for clues in your values all the time. So moving on to engagement and communications, you want to be making it a two-way thing. I've seen in quite a few organisations where communication is a communication team that writes stuff that gets put out in a newsletter, and people are expected to read that newsletter and that's where it ends. Trust me, that doesn't work. So make it a two-way conversation. Really give people, encourage people to ask questions and to provide challenges, and give them the mechanisms to ask questions and to be able to voice concerns or whatever it is. But make it two-way and make that possible. Leadership, again, specifically in terms of communication and engagement. So again, it's those behaviours, it's integrity and visibility and consistency in what the messages are, and making sure that your behaviours and your messaging is aligned to that purpose, and making sure that you're inspiring and motivating your people through engagement and communication to stay on board. Transparency is about, honesty really in that communication and the information that you're sharing with your team, especially relevant at the moment in challenging times. I've seen before where organisations kind of panic and close up and go the opposite way and actually start to or stop sharing information when things are going wrong, or maybe things aren't quite going in the direction that you told everybody they were going to, and they panic and they close up, and actually, you know, that makes everybody's lives worse. It's more difficult for the people on the receiving end, let's say, of changes or challenges. And it actually makes it more difficult for the leaders of that business as well, because everybody's a bit nervous and, you know, nobody really knows what's going on, and it just makes everything a lot more difficult. So honesty is so important. About channels then in terms of communication. So again, thinking about the fact that we're in this digital and remote working world at the moment, want to try and be as flexible and as inclusive as possible when it comes to engaging digitally. Actually, Paul at Cotswold Fair said that he has seen an improvement in communication during lockdown the first time, and obviously they've continued it, and actually they have a number of members of staff who have always been remote workers, and actually previously they would have missed out on communications that would happen in the office, and, you know, when we all kind of get together for a meeting or whatever. And actually a couple of different ways that this has helped now. So they're recording their Zoom sessions, so anybody that missed it for whatever reason can catch up. But these people in particular, these remote workers in particular, are now generally reporting that they feel loads more included, because actually they're able to get onto Zoom calls, whereas they previously couldn't get into the office. So just thinking about ways that you can really make it work for you. And then this one is something that's quite important. Again, with the world being a bit naff at the moment, it's very important that we really celebrate successes, no matter how small they are, and just recognise the implications that that has on everybody's well-being, and, you know, how we can just go out of our ways to make people feel a little bit better, and this is such an easy way of doing it. So just to really celebrate, you know, even the smallest of successes, and all of this stuff around engagement and communications kind of again ventures into the realms of brand, which we've tried to stay away from a little bit for the purposes of this particular session. But clearly, you know, your approach to engagement and communications is wider than internal, and it can be about how you communicate with your clients and your partners and suppliers and things as well. So just to bear that in mind. And then, oh, sorry, yeah. So then, talking about managing change, which I'm going to spend a few minutes on. So how a company manages changes within their business. So again, either with their employees or, you know, as part of a process more widely, can be really, really bad or really, really good for reputation, depending on how they deal with it. And actually, managing change can be a big part of just general organisational culture, and how you make sure you're looking after your employees as you do it. Just to kind of, on that reputation point, on a larger scale, so there's actually a website called didtheyhelp.com, which has been set up specifically to report on how companies and celebrities reacted to the coronavirus pandemic, the Black Lives Matter movement, LGBTQ rights, etc. So, you know, how you deal with something that's thrown your way that you have to kind of manage is a big deal, and you really need to think about how you're doing it. So how to manage change, again, would be a whole other webinar, but what we are going to look at for a few minutes is how people deal with change. So there's this concept of a change curve, which some of you may or may not already be aware of, and there are a couple of different versions of it. I think my favourite is this one. So not only are you potentially somewhere along the curve, but you can also ricochet off the curve into various different places. So I always think this is quite amusing. But so we're just going to look at this slightly simpler version for a second, and I'm just going to launch another poll. So I just want you to think for a second, if we all think about coronavirus and think about where you might have been on this change curve about 6 months ago. Let me just... Is that up properly? So 6 months ago, you know, mid-May or whatever it was, a couple of months into lockdown, we weren't really sure when everything was going to open back up again. You were only really allowed out once a day for exercise. You weren't really able to see family or friends unless you were kind of getting into the swing of Zoom and things by that point. And then think about where you are now. So we're obviously in a second lockdown and potentially still be in tears when we come out of this, but you know, there's a prospect of a vaccine. We know more about the kind of safety precautions that we should be taking. I think the rules are probably, you know, a bit more relaxed than they were back then. And I think the other thing to bear in mind with this is it doesn't, you know, it's not necessarily an A to B thing. You don't necessarily move along the curve in a straight line. I know I've been backwards and forwards along this curve more times than I care to think about. So, you know, just really think about where those differences are and how you may have moved forwards or backwards. Excellent. So I'll end that and share it. So yeah, so frustration's a popular one there for 6 months ago. I hear you. Interesting. Some of us now moving on to experiment and integration now. Yeah, so that's loads more positive, and you know, it just kind of shows. And I bet if you think about, you know, some of the things that you've kind of experienced along the way that have helped with that, and you know, just your own kind of mental well-being and understanding how you want to deal with it and stuff. So I shall just close that down. So if you think then about how people deal with change, so you might have noticed, first of all, I don't know whether any of you have spotted the synergies with the innovation adoption model. So that's very much, you kind of have early adopters, and then you have an early and late majority, and then laggers. It also aligns to the grief cycle. And actually with being on the receiving end of change, as I describe it, you focus first on what you're losing actually when a change comes up. That's where your mind goes first. There can be some very strong emotions. And if you think about the way that the brain works, so you have the prefrontal cortex, which is where your kind of rational and trusting and certainty is. That takes 0.1 seconds to kick in, basically, when something happens. Then you have your amygdala, which is where your emotions and your distrust or your fight or flight or your uncertainty lives, and that is only 0.07 seconds. So your emotions and that distrust and that uncertainty, that always kicks in first. I don't know if anybody's read the Chimp Paradox book by Professor Steve Peters. That's the chimp there that's kicking in first. That's your chimp jumping up and down going, no, this isn't going to happen, we don't want this. So that's what that is. And one way, like I say, kind of how you go about managing all of that is a separate session that could be done. But one way that you can kind of help that emotion from a managing change point of view is to really help people to get involved and make them responsible for some of those ideas for change. And what Paul's done at Cotswold Fair is create change groups. And actually, in the world of change management and change specialists, creating a network of change agents is something that we adopt quite often in terms of implementing large-scale changes and transformation across large organisations. But it works really, really well. And again, in line with kind of checking back with your values to kind of give you clues about how to do things, a couple of their values are around trust and around disruption, but good disruption. And so having these small cohorts of change agents really kind of drives that, and it empowers them to to make those changes. And if you have that really clear purpose in place in the first place, then that obviously provides those kind of guiding principles for these people to be going in the right direction anyway. And Paul says, so nobody from the leadership team is allowed in these change groups. And he says their ethos is kind of tell us what you're doing, but basically we're going to say yes. So they're really, really empowered to, to just get on with stuff, which is really good. So moving on to infrastructure now. So this is the foundations of your business operations, basically. So it's the tools, the systems, how things work. It's the things that you use to do the work and how you measure the work that you do. It's your cogs that make the business turn. So thinking about processes first. So the key one for me, again, is that customer experience. What is that customer experience? How does it link to your purpose? What's the value that you're providing for your customer? And what processes are actually contributing to that? And which parts of the processes are actually adding the value versus which parts of the process probably don't necessarily add direct value for the customer, but they need to be done nonetheless. And just really making sure that you're getting the most out of those bits that really add value, basically. The project manager in me is obviously going to say, plan, 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 plan. So take your strategy and figure out what that means. So what is it you're saying you want to deliver as part of that strategy, and translate that into real tangible actions. So you can do, there's various approaches. There's an approach to plan 30, 60, 90. So you're planning for the month to 3 months ahead, but really as tangible and as low level as you can get it, really. Governance. So this is kind of around the way that your business is structured, and what is your meeting schedule, what is your decision-making process, what is your reporting approach, what templates do you use, all of that good stuff. And there are various frameworks that you can use if you're worried about, or if you say that you're using the triple bottom line, which is people, profit, planet. You can almost structure your business around that. You can, I wouldn't have been able to get through a purpose-related webinar without talking about B corporations. So that again is a framework and a certification that's provided to businesses who go through. It's quite a rigorous process, actually, kind of looking at all of your processes and the way that you do business. But Cotswold Fair, for example, have structured quite a lot of things within their business around that B corporation framework. So you could do that. All sorts of different ways of doing it. Then thinking about freeing up value. When I talk about freeing up value, this is thinking about what you might be able to automate in terms of your processes. And this isn't freeing up time, to kind of cut costs or to cut resources. This is automating things currently done by humans so that you can take those humans' brains and really add value, into other areas, and to really get them thinking and working their brain in the areas that it can be used best, rather than just on repetitive kind of tasks that can be picked up elsewhere in a better way. Coming back to values, again, you might get sick of me talking about values, but they will give you clues about some of what your processes should be. So, for example, if you're bothered about the environment and sustainability, then do you use Ecosia as your website browser instead of Google? Do you make sure everybody turns off the lights when you leave the office, and all of that sort of stuff? So make sure it comes back to that. Make sure you're really doing everything that aligns with what you say you're doing. And one of the ways that Paul's built this into Cotswold Fair is they always start their meetings. Well, they always start their meetings actually with a minute of of silence to kind of get everybody present, and to make sure that everybody's really focused on the task in hand. And you make a really good start to a meeting by doing that. But also they always make sure that all of their meetings, including kind of board meetings, they start with people or planet related conversations rather than the, you know, the numbers and the finances and stuff like that. So with technology, so it can be very easy to get a bit carried away with tech, or at least I find. So you kind of dive into buying systems or doing things because other people are, or because you think you should be, or because it's cool. But actually, you just really need to make sure that you're understanding the business needs first. So both internally and externally. So talk to people in the business, talk to your clients, make sure you really understand what it is you're doing and what you might be able to use tech for. So whether it's CRM systems or AI or chatbots, or, you know, what technology you're using for video calling and collaboration and all sorts of other stuff, and your equipment and things. Make sure you're fulfilling the business need rather than building a business need around a system that you've bought. Just mentioned it there, but thinking about how you use technology for communication and collaboration. So it's about more than video calls. So you might have all been used to kind of Zoom and Teams now, but once you, and especially once you start to build, you know, a bigger business, there are other things that you'll be needing technology for. And even just Office 365 is an absolute Pandora's box of opportunity. You know, just everything from kind of file sharing and chatting so that you can kind of reduce your emails in your inbox, but there are all sorts of other apps that you can integrate. So like, I don't know whether any of you use Trello, or, you know, all sorts of things. So make sure you're exploring all opportunities there. Thinking about equipment, so making sure that your team really have the tools that they need. So do they need to be, I mean, everybody's remote now, so probably laptop and phone. There are questions about bring your own device, although you need to be very careful with security there, but there are some kind of benefits there that have been found on letting employees use their own devices. But essentially, again, it is about understanding what the business needs and how you're best going to deliver that and give your people the tools to do what they need to do. Talking about function, so when I say function, I mean, is there a function within the business, and this kind of comes back again to the automation thing, is there a function within the business that will work better and more effectively and more efficiently by introducing technology? So whether that's an app for customers or a chatbot to form part of your customer service function, or whether it's automation for any of the functions that your employees need to do. But again, it's about freeing up the value that your humans can add by, you know, letting some of those processes be done more efficiently in a different way. Finally, depending on the systems that you're using, if you're using them well, they can also be a really valuable source of data, and we'll come on to kind of information and data a bit more in just a second. But it can really help, you know, decision making, avoiding big problems, but you do need to make sure that you're kind of using them in the right way. But this can be a really good source of information to kind of help guide your business. So I know that if you ask Paul, he would tell you a horror story about getting the right systems in place and making sure that you get the implementation right. But what they have is a system that, so everybody uses the same system in Cotswold Fair, and so you can start to see where some of that data conversation came from, in terms of, you know, if everybody's using it, you know, it's got all sorts in there. So the reporting function's good, it's very easy to use, so actually when somebody starts using it for the first time, they kind of get up to speed very quickly, so their speed to productivity is really good. So again, it's just, you know, look at the needs of the business and, you know, implement technology accordingly. Finally, thinking about information. So research is something that, you know, is mega important. Make sure you're investing in this, especially when it comes to what Brenda was talking about, you know, about purpose and making sure that you are aligning yourself with it and walk the walk and talk the talk. You need to make sure that you understand what you're doing and why you're doing it, and make sure you understand what's out there in terms of what it is you're trying to achieve. So do market research, do customer research, do competitor analysis, look into the legislation and regulations, you know, make sure you know your stuff. In terms of decision making, so again, just talking about data there, but having that data at your fingertips really helps shape your business. You can see when something is about to go wrong, when it's going wrong. The data can help you problem solve. It helps you understand what you can do about it, and it helps you maximize any opportunities. In terms of measuring progress internally, so I know that kind of purpose and vision and strategy can be a bit difficult to reach for some people who are perhaps a bit more analytical or more financially minded. So this is about kind of translating all of that into numbers and into something that you can quantify. So sometimes we talk about purpose over profit. You know, the two aren't mutually exclusive. They don't have to be mutually exclusive, you know, and often your finance teams, once you reach the point that you have a finance department, they're going to want to know how you're measuring stuff. And so it's really about, again, there are kind of different frameworks and different ways that you can do this, but it's about how you know that what you're doing is really ingrained and what that purpose is and how it's really ingrained in the business. So this is kind of KPIs, key performance indicators, or OKRs, objectives and key results, as some people are calling them nowadays. But you can kind of look at staff feedback surveys, the quantifying your strategy stuff that I was talking about. There's all sorts of different ways of doing it. And then measuring impact externally as well. So this is something that obviously quite a lot of charities do. Certainly now B corporations are doing it. So these two examples that you can see up on the screen are a charity, and the other one is Cotswold Fair. There are other accreditations that you can get. So there are a social enterprise mark, or there are green business ones, so you can look into those. But again, looking at your kind of external image and your marketing and your messaging with this as well is really good. And then again with transparency, so just that honesty, share the information that you have with employees, you know, let them know how things are going and what's going on, and think about sharing it more widely as well. So, you know, a bit like with these impact reports, do you have data and information that could be useful elsewhere within the wider system that your business exists in, or, you know, who else might benefit from the information and the data that you have? And just a note here from Paul around the importance of data management. So particularly with a business like theirs, which they have an online store, they have an outsourced logistics function, and so they have all of these kind of stock levels and all of this data that just has to be absolutely bob on throughout the whole process. And as soon as somebody has a spreadsheet saved on their desktop somewhere and isn't using that system, or, you know, as soon as somebody puts something, Lynn, I can see your head in your hands there. As soon as somebody, you know, starts doing something wrong with the data, then the knock-on effects of that are, yeah, potentially devastating. But again, if you're kind of monitoring that kind of stuff in the way that you know that you need to be for your business, then that gives you an early heads up that something might be going wrong, and you can kind of do a bit of digging and work out how to fix it. So that is everything from me. So just to say thank you so much for your time. I hope we hope you found it useful. Yeah. We do want to offer, so if any of you have any specific questions, or if you want to explore any of these topics with us further, then we're happy to, you know, to explore something further, either with both of us or just one of us, depending on what it is. Then we'd love to offer that to you guys. So just let us know. And then we are going to be sharing the video. Obviously, we said we've recorded it. We'll share it with you afterwards, and we'd love it if you shared it with your networks, and have another watch just to check whether you've missed anything, perhaps. And we'd love your feedback on today's session as well. So if you want to use that QR code, it's just literally about 3 questions, I think, just to let us know what you've thought of today.
Yeah.
I'm just going to move on briefly one more time, because we do have just some of the books and things that we've mentioned in there, just in case you want to make a note of any of those, some of the things that we've referenced. And then we do have some of our various platforms and things that you can find us on there, but we'll share all of those in the email that we send out to you afterwards. So,
and I see you've all been sharing your own details on the chat, so if people want to save the chat, you just press the 3 little dots on the bottom right and you can save it, and then you've got everybody's details there as well.
I'll go back to that QR code for a second.
Yeah. Well, I hope everybody got something from that, and you can take some actions away. And yeah, a lot of good stuff in there. A lot of stuff to think about.
Lots of stuff to think about. Thank you.
Yeah.